Clerk to please call roll.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Mr. Greg David,
Present.
Mr. Justin Smith,
Here.
Mr. John Welch,
Present.
Miss Diane Nguyen appears as absent, and Mayor Jim Benage.
Here, live video.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. So we do have a bit of a different setup this evening. Our mayor's joining us remotely, and so he asked me to conduct the meeting from here. So he will be joining us, but I'll be conducting the meeting this evening. Now I'll go ahead and ask Dr. Robert Lindstedt to please lead us in opening prayer.
Let's pray. Father God, we come to you tonight, and we thank you for your many blessings upon us. We thank you, Father, for the protection you've given to our community, both in terms of our health and even in terms of weather. Father, we thank you for the children, the families, the citizens that we have that make up our community. And Father, we pray that we might work for the good of each other, and that as we do so, that we might bring glory to God. Father, I think of those who serve our community, the workers day by day, and the city hall and the fire department, the police department. Father, we appreciate these people and pray that you will bless them and their families. Then, Father, we come to the time that's close to Easter and resurrection, and what a blessing it is to know that Jesus Christ, our Savior, died on the cross, shed his blood, and rose again that we might have eternal life. We give you thanks for this. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Now, if we can all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, tonight I'm excited. We have a couple of proclamations. The Sunrise men's basketball team is having a great year, and I have some proclamations as well as some plaques to hand out. Coach Barnwell was selected Jersey Mike's Coach of the Year for the second straight year, as well as senior Grady Dick, who was recognized as Gatorade National Player of the Year. So I'll go ahead and read those proclamations now, and then I'll ask Mr. Barnwell to join me at the podium. To the citizens of Bel Aire, Kansas, greetings. Whereas the governing body has the opportunity to pause from its legislative duties to recognize those who have made a unique impact on this community, and whereas Sunrise Christian Academy was founded in Bel Aire by Dr. Robert Lindstedt in 1983 and has grown to over 540 students. And whereas Sunrise Christian Academy, Buffalo's basketball team is ranked #1 in the country from the Freelance League. And whereas Luke Barnwell has been the head men's basketball coach since 2015, and whereas Luke Barnwell received the 2022 Jersey Mike's Naismith High School Coach of the Year award, therefore I, Justin Smith, Council President, do hereby congratulate Luke Barnwell for his 2022 Naismith High School Coach of the Year award for the second straight year, and wish him and the SCA basketball team the best of luck the rest of the 2022 season. And to the citizens of Bel Aire, Kansas, greetings. Whereas the governing body has the opportunity to pause from its legislative duties to recognize those who have brought a positive image to this community, and whereas the Sunrise Christian Academy was founded in Bel Aire by Dr. Robert Lindstedt in 1983 and has grown to over 540 students, and whereas Grady Dick is a senior at Sunrise Christian Academy playing on the men's basketball team, and whereas Grady Dick won the Gatorade National Player of the Year for the 2021-2022 season. Therefore, I, Justin Smith, Council President, do hereby congratulate Grady Dick for being named the 2022 Gatorade National Men's Basketball Player of the Year and wish him well at the Kansas University for the 2022-2023 season. Join me at the podium. Thank you. Congratulations. Those copies, and I'll give you Grady's as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is to determine agenda additions. Are there any additions for the agenda? Okay. See none, we can move on to the consent agenda. It contains only the minutes of the March 15th regular council meeting.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed and authorize the council president to sign.
I'll second.
All right. I have a first and a second. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 3-0. The next item on the agenda is the Appropriations Ordinance. This appropriation ordinance includes our annual liability insurance totaling $146,221, as well as bonded project expenses at $292,000. Are there any questions on this item for staff?
Mr. President,
Mr. David?
I motion to approve the Appropriations Ordinance 22-06.
I'll second.
A first and a second on the Appropriations Ordinance. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 3-0. All right, I believe we have no city requested appearances this evening. We're now going to hold a public hearing. The Homestead Senior Residences has requested an IRB for their senior apartments being constructed on the southeast corner of 53rd and Oliver. The IRB process requires a public hearing. I hereby open the public hearing and ask any interested parties wishing to speak on the IRB to come to the podium, state your name and address, and share your comments. The public hearing is now open. I'm seeing no one from the public wishing to comment at the public hearing. I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. There's a first and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Next item on the agenda is citizens' concerns. If you wish to speak, please fill out a request to speak card, and I'm not sure, and give it to the city clerk. Do we have any requesting to speak tonight? Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak tonight? Please come to the podium. All right, not seeing anybody, so we'll move on to council member reports. Mr. David, would you like to start tonight?
Mr. President, no report.
Mr. Welch?
No report.
All right, well, I do have a brief report. I did attend the CCUA meeting on March 24th. We had a few topics on the agenda. One of the topics was addressing CCUA bylaws. We had a unique situation this year with trying to elect a chairman, and our current bylaws don't currently address a situation of how to proceed when there's a tie. And so we talked about that. We didn't come to a final resolution, but we're working on that, as well as addressing the sick and vacation policy for employees and looking to modernize that structure in a way that provides some more flexibility and options for employees. We did spend some time as well talking about the Sbr3 Decanter. It's in need of some repairs. It regularly breaks and isn't an easy fix. And so we're talking about some options to go ahead and make some needed repairs to that decanter. It looks like those will be in the $50,000 to $60,000 range probably, but they're very necessary. And so that'll be another item coming before the CCUA in the future. Finally, we did have an interesting situation where our Bod testing at the plant, that's the influent to the plant. It's as best as I understand it, it's a measure of the potency of the wastewater that comes into the plant. Our test readings have almost doubled in the last couple of months in terms of the potency of the wastewater at the plant. And that's a real issue for the CCUA facility because the plant's only designed to process so much waste potency. And so the CCUA manager was instructed to get with the city managers and try to track down what industry or what thing maybe has caused that kind of basically doubling of waste these last couple of months. And so that's something that'll need to be resolved rather quickly. And that concludes my report. I'll now go to the mayor and ask the mayor to share his report.
Thank you, Council President Smith. I'm sorry I could not physically be there tonight. I am certain Council President Smith will do a fine job as he already has demonstrated. The week of March 21st, I did receive a letter from the Arbor Day Foundation announcing that Bel Aire has again been recognized as the 2021 Tree City USA. This is a great recognition for the work done by our tree board to assure that we are planting and managing the right kind of trees for our area. Gary Northwall is the current chairperson of this board. His reappointment to the board is on tonight's agenda. So congratulations to Gary and his team for another year well done. I believe the tree board will hold a presentation of the award in the near future. Also, speaking of the tree board, we have 2 open slots on this board. So anyone interested in serving the city in this capacity, please let us know. We have a general application available on the city website. Alternatively, anyone who can just drop me an email and I will get the process started. The tree board meets about once a month. On Wednesday, March 23rd, I had a short discussion with City Financial Auditor Tara Laughlin with AGH as part of her audit activities. We discussed any concerns I may have with the city's financials, which I have none. Ted Henry does a great job keeping us informed. We also discussed the possibility of city council members talking with Ms. Laughlin. So that certainly can be done. If any council member would like to discuss any concerns, please talk with Ted about arranging for a discussion with Ms. Laughlin. The audit process wraps up sometime in May. So Thursday, March 24th, I also attended the CCUA meeting with Councilmember Smith. We just a couple things. I won't repeat his comments because the reason both of us saying the same thing, but we did authorize purchase of 3 probes to do some continuous monitoring, which is an improvement from taking discrete samples and doing sample analysis. We also approved starting the process of moving water rights between wells. This will increase the overall available capacity of water for almost no cost. On April 1st, I attended the KA-254 Corridor Association meeting. KDOT has issued project number KA 6499-01 for the K-254 Corridor Management Plan. So this is scheduled for bid project completion by the end of 2023. It's very good news to get the process working for real improvements on K-254. Still a few years away, but gaining traction. A news release went out on April 1st. KTA has also announced a study that is being done addressing future plans for the Turnpike interchange in El Dorado. And so that will be done this year. So looking at that whole corridor, that's a very good thing. And lastly, we authorize up to $5,000 to be spent to aid the Benton and Bel Aire police departments to develop to develop and present a traffic safety to 4 high schools: Heights, Northeast, Circle High School, and El Dorado High School. So that's help get some awareness in the students of traffic safety, keep their phones down, and wear their seatbelts and another thing. So we're trying to encourage more safety in that area. We have received to date 1 application and 1 inquiry to fill the city council seat that became open with Dr. Joe Schroeder's resignation. Applications are due by April 14th. I think if we received them late the 14th, we'd still accept them. So eligible Bel Aire residents are encouraged to apply. Please contact our city clerk if you have any questions concerning the process for filling this position. And I have spoken before about the critical need for blood in Kansas and around the United States. There is an opportunity to donate blood this coming Friday, April 8th, at the Sunrise Christian Academy, right here in Bel Aire. So if you are eligible to donate blood, you can schedule an appointment for this Friday online at www.redcrossblood.org, or you can call 800-RED-CROSS. If I am in town soon enough, I might do that myself. I don't know. We'll see how quickly I can get back to Bel Aire. The League of Kansas Municipalities is holding a Government Body Institute training April 29th and 30th in Manhattan, Kansas. I will be attending the Kansas Mayor's Conference there, which is concurrent with this training. I encourage any council members that can to sign up for this training. See Mr. Lasher about this. And lastly, I have a letter to read from Miss Diane Wynn. Pull that up here. There you go. Bear with me for a second while I get to the right file. Okay. So council and residents of Bel Air, you have been wondering why I have missed so many meetings recently. If you know me, this is not characteristic of my behavior or my personal standard of professionalism. I do apologize. Due to illness in my family, I've had to prioritize taking care of my ailing family member over the past year. It is not feasible for me to continue my role as an engaged council member with these additional responsibilities on my plate. Therefore, I am resigning from council as of May 1st, 2022. Please know that it has been a great joy and honor to serve my community as city council member and utility advisory committee member. I will take this pause to take care of my family. However, I look forward to serving our community again in the near future. Sincerely, Diane Wynn. And this was signed yesterday, April 4th, 2022. So we are sorry to hear Ms. Wynn resign, but also understand the importance of taking care of our families. We do wish her the best, and please keep Ms. Wynn and her family in your prayers. And I do hope everyone has a joyous Easter celebration. That's all my report, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll now go to our city attorney.
Thank you, Council President. Just a couple of items from the legislature. The countywide tax sale issue, which we were concerned about the counties controlling how tax money is distributed within the county. That issue generated from an issue that Atchison, Kansas was having, and so it was going to be addressed with a statewide solution. However, last week, the legislature decided to more narrowly come up with a solution that would apply to Atchison and their public works and how taxes would work there in relation with the county, and not impose that piece that would apply statewide. So your request, I think we sent a letter early on. At this point, we can be comfortable that as the bill proceeds, that any threat to county control of local tax or sharing local tax revenue is not going to happen. Another legislative issue is the current food sales tax bill that's proceeding through both houses seems to have gained a lot of support. However, last week there were provisions put in to make sure that it has no impact on removing local taxes. So though the state would cut their share of taxes from groceries, it would not impact any other local taxes as it stands. And finally, our league partners and our AG's office both are working on on processing the opioid claims. As of now, it seems like 81% of the population in Kansas have joined the claim that the city also joined in, and they anticipate distributing that money this late spring. So far it's going as planned. They just have to figure out the calculations for what per capita everybody will get. So we'll find out about that pretty soon. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Now to the city manager.
Thank you, Council President. This Saturday is the Spring Festival. We'll be at the Rec Center starting at 1 p.m. And run through 3 p.m. There'll be food vendors, inflatables, games, and of course the egg hunt, which is always popular. There's 3 different times for 3 different age groups. It's important not to be late or the eggs will be gone. Again, that is this Saturday, starting at 1 p.m. Also, just wanted to let our citizens know, but it's a good opportunity for students. We have some Sunrise students that have volunteered to pick up trash along 53rd Street for us on Friday. So they're going to be here from 11:30 to 1:30. So we'll have some officers out there protecting them. But it's a good, there are opportunities within the city if there are groups and organizations that would like to volunteer. We have different things for them to do. So I know the mayor had mentioned that with the Catholic Church and high school. But we have opportunities and we appreciate volunteers like that. And then April 30th is the long-awaited e-recycling and shredding day here at City Hall. And also that day, as the mayor mentioned, we'll have an Arbor Day celebration. It won't be here at City Hall. It'll be at the Bel Aire or the Central Park here. And I'll have more information on both of those at our next meeting. But everybody's always enjoys the recycling and the shredding. But that will be April 30th, last Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Welch.
Can I make a comment about the e-recycling? I noticed in today's Bel Air Breeze that the county is also doing e-recycling at the same time. So if you know somebody that lives outside the city limits of Bel Air, send them to the county site. Look in the Breeze, you can find the information.
All right, thank you. That concludes our reports. We'll move into the ordinances, resolutions, and final actions. Item 13A is the consideration of a resolution regarding IRBs in the city. In 2016, the city issued an IRB to Midwest Sunflower LLC, who in turn leased the property to Sunflower Property Partners LLC. The IRB constructed the Nordic Stone and the SCKEED buildings. As with any IRB, the city holds the title on the land until the IRB is paid off. The property tax abatements have expired, and Sunflower Property Partners is purchasing the building from Midwest Partners via a refinance. So the city has to approve the sale and transfer of the land. Kevin Cowan with Gilmore and Bell is here to answer any questions.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't have anything to add really to what the council president said. This is a situation where the city has been the conduit issuer of bonds, and the bonds are retired. There's a purchase option under the IRB lease. And so just as a matter of course, this is typically what happens. The IRB tenant will then request the city to take the necessary steps to go ahead and deliver title back to the company.
Are there any questions? If not, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve a resolution of the governing body of the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, authorizing the sale and conveyance of certain properties to Sunflower Property Partners, LLC, and authorize the council president to sign.
I'll second.
All right, the motion has a first and a second. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion passes 3-0. Thank you. Looks like you get to stay for the next one here. Item 13B is a follow-up from our February 15th meeting when council approved the letter of intent to issue an IRB to the Homestead Senior Residences to construct the senior living apartments. The next step is adopting a resolution to begin the issuance process. Earlier, we had a public hearing on this issue as required by state law, and Mr. Cowan is here to answer any questions about this item as well.
One thing I would add, and we may have talked about this in February, that these proceedings replace proceedings that were undertaken by the council in 2018 that had a time limit on them and provided that the IRBs be issued and the project proceed by late 2020. So that wasn't met. And now the project is proceeding, and this again sort of replaces that set of proceedings if it's the will of the governing body.
Thank you for that. Any questions or discussion on this item?
Mr. President,
Mr. David.
I'll make the motion to approve a resolution of the governing body of the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, determining the advisability of issuing taxable industrial revenue bonds for the purpose of financing the acquisition, construction, and equipping of a commercial facility to be located in the city, and authorizing execution of related documents and authorize the council president to sign.
All second.
All right, there's a first and a second. Is there any discussion? No discussion. I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes 3-0. All right. Item C is purchase of a compact excavator. So due to the size of lots as well as the amount of utilities installed in the right-of-ways, Public Works staff has determined the need for a smaller piece of equipment for utility work. These smaller excavators are easier to maneuver, cause less damage to lawns, and are more precise when they dig. The 2022 CIP budget included $60,000 for one of these compact excavators. We have 3 quotes in front of us, and the city manager will explain the details.
So, thank you, Council President. So the lowest bid and the preferred company was Bobcat. Yeah, there's a picture of it. It's very different, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of utility companies using these now instead of those big backhoes. We still have backhoes, and they're still needed for various reasons. But with the continued growth of residential lots and houses that we have, averaging over 100 a year, our public works crews are out tapping into sewer mains and water mains and putting in water meters, and they're in people's yards. And of course, in situations where there may be a water leak that's in someone's yard, these smaller type of excavators do not create such big holes, don't tear up the yards as much. They're easy to unload and load. And it's just something that staff has realized the need for and why so many companies utilize them. We talked about it last year during the budget process and equipment for public works, and this was something that was identified. We budgeted $60,000 for it, and fortunately the low bid came in at $59,900, just under the $60,000. So be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Lasher,
Yes, sir.
I know you said in your report that there was a 2-year warranty on the Bobcat as well, but I didn't see it in the bid.
Yes. So all of them had 2-year warranties, which that's something that we wanted to look at. The other question we had was availability. We learned on our dump truck that's still not here yet that some things can take months to get in, and they assured us that this Bobcat could be here in 90 days. So.
Didn't I also read it had some extra equipment on the Bobcat the others did not?
Yes. So what the state oftentimes will negotiate contracts with companies, and you may hear it, and you heard it in this report, that the cities, counties and such can use the state's negotiated contracts for certain types of equipment. And Bobcat was one that the state, because they purchased these, negotiated a price that we could use. And so had we actually went out to bid like on the other 2, which we did, and added in the equipment, that extra equipment, the Bobcat would have came in over the other 2 pieces of equipment.
One of the questions that I had sent the city manager was on, this purchase option versus just renting it when we need it. He shared with me that I think the rental cost on this is over $250 a day. And with the rate that we would use this, he expected this machine to pay for itself in about 3 years. And so I thought that made sense to purchase versus to rent in this case. Any other questions or comments on this item?
Mr. President,
Mr.
I'll
Welch.
make a motion to accept the quote from Bobcat at a cost of $59,924.12 for a new compact excavator, and authorize the council president to sign.
I'll second.
Have a first and a second. Any discussion? See no discussion, I'll call for vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Same sign. Motion passes 3-0. And just to confirm, is the mayor still with us? He's no longer on the projector screen. I was just wondering if he was still with us.
I'm still here.
All right, thank you.
If you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Placed by a bobcat.
Yeah, there's a bobcat in your spot. All right, the next item on the agenda is the consideration of accepting a bid to install streetlights in Central Park. So the city installed and is responsible for the streetlights in Central Park due to their design. Since Prestwick going north of Central Park Avenue was recently completed, staff has identified the need for 3 streetlights that match the lights in Central Park. The city manager can explain the project and answer any questions.
So yeah, this is a unique situation. There's different ways that streetlights are installed. Evergy typically does all the installations now. However, if there are specific decorative type of streetlights, they don't install those. They don't manage those. Those are all up to the municipality or the agency that's installing them. So what the history of Central Park, if you drive around Central Park, you notice that the street lights here are black. They're ornamental. They're smaller. There was a picture, I think, up. And so those lights are not, Evergy does not deal with them in any way. So the lights in Central Park, if one gets hit, then our Public Works has to go out and replace it. Bulbs go out, they have to go replace those. So we're responsible for all the maintenance and such. Prestwick Avenue, we recently extended that. It didn't go to 53rd Street, and it now goes to 53rd off the roundabout right here by City Hall. And of course, there's no street lights along there. So staff looked at needing 3 new lights that would match the Central Park area. And so that's where the cost comes from, $30,000. We actually have Atlas Electric does all of our electrical work on them. We'll replace the bulbs and such, but they'll have to run some lines from wherever the current electricity is to each one of those and install them on concrete. So, and the funds will come out of the street fund.
I'll ask a question. It does not seem to me that those are as bright. They don't cast as much light on the street or sidewalks. Or is there bulbs we can replace? Or
we're trying to replace them with LED ones that are a little better. But I think just the way that they're designed, they don't, because the top bowl is open. Most street lights actually shine down. And I think that's some of the problem is that the light kind of escapes all the way around it and doesn't come down to the sidewalk and the street, which is what we're used to.
is there any alternative design that would blend? I understand we kind of want to keep the neighborhood the same, but
I don't think, not that we have seen. And like I said, the problem is that the way the bulb at the top is all open, and so it just escapes all the light, and they're just not as bright. Like I said, we are switching them to LED, which are better. They last longer, but there's a cost to that. So typically what we're doing is waiting till they go out and then replacing them.
So I have a couple of concerns on this. And I know it's only 3 streetlights, but that design of streetlight has been pointed out doesn't put the light on the road. And so my concern is the light pollution that creates in the rest of the neighborhood. These could be really close to people's houses and cause a lot of light pollution. I know that when we look at in commercial facilities or industrial facilities, our master plan specifies that we make sure that lights are installed that limit light pollution. And it doesn't look like that's been considered with this particular type of street design. I'm also just wondering, these are neighborhood streets. Is it, I guess, what's the purpose of lighting the neighborhood streets? Is it the plan to install lights in all of the neighborhoods and have all neighborhood streets be, lit all throughout the neighborhood? I know that we're doing lights on main streets, but the electricity costs on these lights really add up. And I'm just wondering if it's really cost effective to do neighborhood street lighting.
I think our codes do require street lights. I don't, and I think it has so many feet that they have to be or something like that. Because we'll look that up, because you're right. All the new subdivisions have street lights in them. They're spread out. They're usually spread out longer, farther, so you don't have as much of the pollution. The other piece of it is more about safety. If you park a car underneath a street light, it's probably going to be a little safer than where there's no street light and it's darker. And I think some of it is, I don't know a better word, but ambiance, or, that's kind of the way you see Central Park is there. Of course, they're not as tall. I think they're 12, 14 foot tall. So, this light pollution isn't going to be like a typical tall light that's a street light that's probably 18 or 20 foot. So I think, to be honest, a lot of it is just the decorative, the fact that it does light the sidewalk, because there's a sidewalk that goes along there. So if someone's out in the evening and it gets dark, you can see on the sidewalk. It does provide some along the street, but it's probably not so much practical, but it's, the other pieces of it, the safety, the walking, that type of stuff.
You mentioned the code, Mr. Leisher. Is there any written or unwritten agreement with the community that the city would provide these? Was that built into the original planning?
No. So typically what happens is the developer decides what type of lighting will go in. So most developers today put in fiberglass or metal ones that, they're tall. There's a cost to that they incur. But it's more decorative, if you want to say that. They're well lit. They're usually 20 foot. They're the height of a street light. They will put in wood poles at no charge. So on the arterials, that's what you see, because the city doesn't want to pay for those poles. So they put in the wood poles. So typically it's up to the developer to decide what type of lighting will go in. In the situation here, the city was the developer, and the city chose to put in those type of lights. And so that's kind of how they got in Central Park. And that's why the city is now responsible because we were the developer. And, that's understanding that it would be the city's responsibility to maintain them. That's kind of where we're at.
No, we're no longer the developer, though, are we?
No, but it is our responsibility to maintain them, unless, the council wanted to replace them all with wood poles or something.
But it's not our responsibility to install more. That's what
It's not. No. I mean, you could certainly say we're not going to put them in, or we could put one in at 53rd Street.
Well, at this very moment, I'm leaning towards a more traditional light, because that's a busier street, and that we light it well instead of beautiful, I guess. That's the trade-off. Do we have sufficient lighting, or do we have beauty?
Did we consider an alternative of putting a more traditional light up at the intersection?
No, I mean that
we'd have to look into that.
Yeah, and again, if we we know that a wood pole up there would be no charge. If we wanted to put a metal one in, or a fiberglass, there's going to be a charge. Typically, last I remember, they were $500 or some $1,000, something like that for that. Probably at that point we'd just put one in there, because it wouldn't look right to have some metal ones coming down and then with these all in the same street. So we'd probably just put one there, and it would leave the rest of it dark.
Personally, I think that might be a wiser use of taxpayer funds, given the ineffectiveness of that light. And because it is on 53rd Street, I don't know that it's going to like stand out in the neighborhood if we don't spend the $23,000 and put those in there. So I don't know that it's going to make the neighborhood look bad or degrade the experience that's already there in the neighborhood. It's kind of where my head's at. I don't know where the rest of the council is thinking.
I think we should have good lighting at the major intersections.
Good lighting, lower cost. That sounds like a nice answer.
So if we go with that, does that mean buy 2 instead of 3 and put 1 in at the corner, or,
Well,
what's our alternative here? I'm trying to.
yeah, so I think at this point, I don't know that the 3 maintains the distance that currently we have between streetlights. So I think you would either not approve it, and then we put 1 in at the intersection at 53rd, or you would approve it and we put 3 in because that maintains the look and the distance between all the other ones.
Do we need to study this another week or 2?
It seems like the decision is either put the 3 in or put the 1 in at the corner. And that's probably all the studying that I'm hearing needs to be done. Is that fair?
So if we put 1 at the
Yeah.
corner, we wouldn't put any of the ornamentals?
Yes, that's what I'm
Okay.
hearing. Mr. Mayor, would you like to comment on this item?
Well, I think that, the aesthetics is an important thing to keep in mind. And I don't have a good feel as to what that aesthetics would be along that stretch. I probably would like to have an opportunity to go take a look. Of course, I'm a few miles away right now, so I can't do that until this weekend at the earliest. But I'm concerned. I hear what folks are saying about the cost and the light pollution and those things, and I get that. But I don't want to make it where the neighborhood looks like, well, we just gave up and made it look tacky. I don't want that. So I'm a little concerned with that. Okay, but I don't have an opinion to tell you right now.
One question, I guess, for the city manager: if we were to not approve this and have the street light installed at the corner, to see how that is aesthetically, it sounds like that's kind of a free option for us. And then if we were to decide later that that doesn't actually look as good as we thought it was going to and wanted to move forward with this, is there a way to uninstall the wood pole that would be at the corner?
Yes, but they would probably charge us.
There'd be a de-installation fee.
Yep.
Okay.
Do we know how they would run electricity to a single pole there at 53rd? Would it come along 53rd, or
No,
would we bury
there's
something
there's
along?
street lights already along there, and but they were spaced before the road was there, so we'd just go out and say, hey, where this intersection's at, do you have one close enough, or can you put one right there? And they just pull it off of one of the other lights that are already there.
I meant to drive through in the dark and see how bad the other ones were. I just remembered that. Didn't think they did a lot of good last few times I've been through there. And that's why I suggested maybe we wait until the next meeting.
Is that a motion?
Okay, I'll make that motion that we table this until the next meeting, that we table this item.
I'll second.
All right, there's a first and a second on a motion to table this to provide some time to look at this in the dark, which I think is a fine idea. So with the motion and a second, is there any further discussion?
President, I just want to make sure that, so by tabling it until the next meeting, whatever happens, it's coming back on the next meeting.
Yes, that's my intent. I'd
That's
like
your
to get
intent.
this out of the system. I don't want it to just hang forever.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Having a first and a second and no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. All in All opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 3-0. All right, item E. The city received a KDOT safety grant to study the intersection of 53rd and Rock. Trans Systems was contracted to complete the engineering study. Based on traffic counts and crash data, Trans Systems recommended a four-way stop. State statutes require an engineering study be completed before changing traffic patterns such as this. At the March 8th workshop, council heard the presentation from Trans Systems and requested that staff create an ordinance making this change. If the ordinance is adopted, the staff will begin warning motorists of the change, with the stop signs being installed around May 2nd. Our city engineer and city attorney can answer any questions.
And I do have some questions on this, Mr. President.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so I'm really in favor of this. I'm glad we're finally getting to doing something about this intersection. I'm still concerned about if that's adequate. I would like us to consider putting those red flashing lights around the periphery of these signs that we put up. And I don't know if there's been how much thought or consideration to give to that, but I just want to encourage, I know this is not a motion to go do that installation. It's a motion to create the ordinance, but I just wanted to throw that out there that is a preference I personally have. So I'd just like to hear what Ms. Stevens and Mr. Lasher might have to say about that.
That would be my preference as well, since this is a newly signed intersection as far as north-south traffic. Stop signs, while they're supposed to be easy to see, people are supposed to be looking out for them. They're not used to them at this location. So I would wholeheartedly agree with the mayor's request for the flashing lights around the stop sign, and that is what I will be pursuing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, did you have any further comments?
No, that's the only comment. I'm really glad we're getting something done here. This is a good thing.
Yeah, me too. I think this is an excellent change, and I also support the flashing lights to make it abundantly obvious that there's new stop signs there. So any other questions or comments on this item?
I support the flashing, something to get your attention to. That was going to be my question, but I think it's been beat to death by the time I mention it. So I would like to make a motion to approve an ordinance providing for the erection of stop signs at a certain intersection, specifying particular intersection Rock Road and 53rd Street North, and providing for penalties for the violation thereof, all within the city of Bel Aire, Sedgwick County, Kansas, and authorize the council president to sign.
I'll second.
He's the president, he wins.
All right, the first and the second, is there any discussion? See no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
And Mr. President, may I ask for a roll call vote, please?
Yes, that was not on my agenda, so please call the roll.
It's not, yes.
Thank you. Mayor Jim Benage.
Affirmative.
Thank you. Mr. Greg David.
Aye.
Mr. Justin Smith.
Aye.
And Mr. Welch.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
All right, I will correct the record, and the motion passes 4-0.
I'm
Via
sorry.
roll call vote.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, did she call Smith?
Do we, I just want to clarify the basis for the recall, for the roll call vote.
To pass the ordinance.
Because it's not having to do with planning and zoning
Uh-huh.
or a tie or something like that. The mayor doesn't vote on this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm
Okay.
sorry. So we
I
would,
apologize.
we can, as long as the final vote, we don't have to re-vote, as
Okay.
long as we consider the final votes, not including the mayor.
Okay,
So
so
motion would
the
be
record will
3-0.
reflect a final vote of 3-0.
Any objections?
No, we just voted twice.
Thank you
So
very
it's really
much.
6-0, right?
There's like 7-0, yeah. So
Yeah, there you go.
all the votes are yes. Nobody's opposed. So thank you for correcting that. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a change order from Pearson Construction for additional quantities of reinforcing steel and temporary pavement. So this is related to the Woodlawn project, and our city engineer is here to explain it, and I'll let her kind of walk us through it.
Sure. I would also like to mention that Greg Allison with MKEC is here if you have any questions of MKEC. This change order, as the council president mentioned, is for additional quantities of reinforcing steel as well as temporary traffic marking paint. These quantities were not correctly identified in the original bid. However, they were planned for in the original bid. So while they weren't on the bid form, they would have been bid and paid for at the planned quantities had they been included in the original bid. So while it does seem like it's an addition to the project, the council is not paying any extra for this amount than they would have been initially had this actually been included. In speaking with KDOT, they said since the work has already been performed, unfortunately with this item, the council doesn't really have much of an opportunity to deny this change order. Even if the council should choose to deny it, as they have a right to, KDOT would still be paying for it and the city would still be paying for their portion of it. So it's kind of a it's kind of an awkward situation at this point, but it was originally in the plans. There was an accident and it got missed in the final schedule of quantities that was bid with the project, but it was in the original plans and was intended to have been built and installed with the project. So hopefully I have not confused the issue too much.
The oversight of it not getting included, is that an engineering oversight or a construction oversight?
I'm not sure. I know in the KDOT process, KDOT does kind of verify some of the quantities. So it was not in the recapitulation of quantities or the quantity listing that MKEC provided, and KDOT did not catch it either.
Okay.
So I'm a little concerned of the process here. How did we get to where we identified that another $39,000 needed to be spent? It was expended and used prior to any approval from the city council. I'm curious as to what happened there, that we didn't get this information a week or month or prior, whenever that was first identified.
So what happened was particularly with the steel quantity, that was included with the box culvert that was extended over near Quail Ridge Pond. That box culvert was extended several months ago as the construction engineers, the observers, Corver, was reviewing their daily quantities. They do have a list of everything that goes on in the project every day. They have a list of quantities that are installed every day. They had looked through it, and when they were preparing the pay application, they noticed that the quantities did not add up. So then that got to be a question of both MKEC and KDOT as to what's going on here. So this is a reconciliation of quantities and not necessarily an adjustment. MKEC went back to their bridge design group and they did verify the quantities that were actually installed in the field were correct, and that there was an error on the plans for the quantities of steel used. And I believe, I'm not as familiar with the traffic marking tape incident, but I believe it was a very similar circumstance, that the traffic marking tape was included in the plans as a pay item quantity, as an item to be performed, and it was just did not get, that additional quantity did not get into the final list of quantities.
So let me kind of restate what I heard you saying, just to make sure that I have this correct, because I'm going to use a little slightly different terminology. In building that culvert, that box culvert build out, they used more steel than had originally been planned in there. That steel was already purchased for other purposes. Is that what was going on here? And then they found, we used more than was in the bid proposals, so that's why we had more used up.
Not
Is that
quite.
what you're telling me? Now you're short steel for other portions of the project?
No,
Is that what we're?
the design plans for that box culvert showed steel, and I'm kind of making up numbers because I don't have the plans in front of me, but a number
Yeah.
4 steel bar every 6 inches. And so the contractor knew exactly how much steel that needed to go into the box culvert. They ordered accordingly. And this is kind of where it gets tricky, because none of the contractors said anything upon bidding the project that, oh, we think there's an error in quantities. So it's kind of, there's a lot of fingers that can be pointed in all different directions. But no, they are not short steel on other portions of the project. It was, they had ordered enough to build this box culvert.
But that number didn't match the bid proposal.
That is correct.
Okay, so I guess what I'm hearing is Garver supposed to be watching those kind of budget items?
They don't, and I can't speak for exactly how they're doing it, but I know they watch and they add things up. They have a daily log, they add things up. I don't know if they add them up on a daily basis. I don't know if it's a weekly basis or just a monthly basis as they're preparing the pay applications. But this has been a quantity item that has been known about for, I would say, at least a month. It has been going through the process with KDOT as well as with Pearson, the general contractor on the project, to get to this point where it comes before you tonight.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to shoot the messenger or anything, but I do want to see us monitor these budgets. And if Garver's the ones that are supposed to be doing that, I would like to make sure that they're more diligent about that. If they're not the ones, then I'd like to know who is supposed to be monitoring the budget to make sure that the costs are appropriate to what's going on. But I had the impression they were doing that.
They are, and I'm just not sure on how frequently they're doing that.
I see Ken Lee from Garver is here, and he's asked to come to the podium to speak.
Good evening, Council. I wasn't planning on talking on this item, but I'm here, so
You're there.
I'm here, so I might as well speak to it. And I'll say in situations like this that we would generally rely on plan quantities and such. We wouldn't check every single bid item before the fact to verify quantities and calculate the quantities ourselves. So in terms of catching it before the fact, I don't think that's something that would normally be done as part of the observation process. As far as the tabulating those, every day we actually measure and enter into a quantity book every day the quantities that we see on the site. As far as whether or not it could have been caught sooner, we typically tabulate those at the end of the month when we're doing our pay requests is when we really actually go into that. So we tabulate it on a daily basis and we put it into our record books. But I don't know that we check it more frequently than that, except for when we're getting to the pay request, when we're reconciliating the quantities with the contractors. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the reconciliation was done maybe at the end of March. Is that what you're telling us?
Most likely, that's when it would have been done. Would have been at the
Or
end of the
maybe
month. That's when we
probably had to be before that, because on this is 4th of April, so it had to be before that.
It would have been whenever we did the last reconciliation where this got noticed. Yeah. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that input.
Before you leave, a real basic question then. So we don't have a firm fixed price bid. We have a plan, and then we're actually paying for actuals.
Yeah.
And so it can go up or down.
Any project like this, yeah, there's a lot of measured quantities that go on during the process, and it rarely seems like they go down in the process, but it's possible they do go down. But it is one of those things that you do measure the quantities out as you go along, and so there can be changes, and it's not atypical to have a reconciliation change order. This is obviously larger than you'd normally expect, but it's not unusual to have a change in quantity on our projects as you go through. It's like on our subdivision projects, we might have 8,500 feet of pipe and it might be 8,510. It's normally in that order of difference normally. But
Is this process consistent with our contracts to where we entered into an agreement that said hey, regardless of what you bid, we're going to pay for what you actually use in terms of materials versus the price you bid for the project? Because that seems like what happens here is they put out a bid, which is maybe just a guess of what it's going to cost, and then they just bill us based on actuals. Is that the nature of our contract with the construction company?
I'm thinking there are two intersecting contracts. One where MKC is calculating the quantities, and then the one where the contractor, I think Pearson's in this case, is actually doing the work. And so it's consistent for Pearson's to come back for a change order with the actuals. So I'd need to look more into that contract, but
Because
yes.
sometimes you enter into an agreement and that agreement says, this is the scope of work that's going to be delivered at this price, and that's the agreement.
Mhm.
And sometimes the agreement says, this is an estimate and we're going to bill you based on the actuals. And it seems like this change order would be consistent with that second
Mhm.
method of agreement. And I just want to make sure that that's actually what we agreed to, is that that's what's going to happen, not that a specific scope of work would be completed at
Right.
a specific price.
Right, not like what you just did for the Bobcat, where you
Right.
set a specific price. I assume Pearson's is not like that, but I'd have to look at that specific contract. I prepared with Ann for the MKEC question, but not Pearson, so I'd have to look at that.
Okay.
There also, within all of the subdivision construction type contracts, there's different items. So you can have an item that is measured in a per each quantity. You can have an item that is measured in a linear foot quantity. You can have an item that is measured in a lump sum quantity. And within the KDOT specifications, all of those quantity differences, the lump sum, the linear foot, the per each, are all defined specifically. And so then when you get to the end of the project, if a particular item was a lump sum, then that's how it's bid. Any changes get absorbed by the contractor unless they're significant and the contractor requests a change in the quantity price due to whatever circumstance. If it's a linear foot, those are typically measured out, as Ken mentioned. Even in subdivision projects, they will measure 8,500 feet as a estimated quantity, and then the actual quantity is measured in the field upon installation. Per each is just what it is. It's per unit. Fire hydrants, for example, are usually measured on a per each quantity. That the specifications define that means it's your fire hydrant, it's your stem going from the top of the fire hydrant down to the main, and the valve is included with that. All labor, material, et cetera, goes into that per each quantity. So it really is a definition purpose. And so, yes, Mr. Smith, you are correct. There's the two different type of contracts. There's the one like we did earlier for the mini excavator that is, I'm paying you $59,900, whatever, for this delivered complete. And then there's the construction contracts, which are a little bit more wiggly, that this is our bid price per the units that have been put forth before us. However, things change in the field. Everybody generally understands that, and they're paid on a measured quantity unless it was specifically stated as lump sum or an established quantity. Established quantities are sometimes used for items like excavation, where the engineer comes through and puts his best estimate on how much excavation there is, but that's usually listed directly on the bid form as established quantity. So it's getting into a little bit more of the details on the quantities, but this is one of those items. We do have a bid price. It is being paid for at the bid price for the quantity that was actually installed and was intended to originally be installed.
I would just think that if you're estimating materials, you would overestimate to make sure you don't run short. So it'd be more under the estimate of actuals than over. And Garver, I guess, is our agent that's working for us to make sure that happens, right?
Well, let me jump in on this. So as far as Garver's role is just to observe the project and tabulate the materials installed. So yes, in that respect, it's our job to make sure that the numbers being presented by the contractor are the accurate numbers of what's being installed. So if that's your question, yes, that is our role there. Jumping back just real briefly, I did want to touch on She mentioned earthwork. That is the one item that is almost never negotiated based on what the contractor's opinion is, because shrink swell is such an amorphous thing that those are almost always paid based on contract price or contract quantity only. Most everything else, because it can be easily measured in the field, you do. But earthwork is one of those exceptions. So you're asking about how often. It's very common particularly on KDOT projects, to pay out on measured quantities. And it's our role, Garver's role, to meet with contract, reconcile quantities, make sure that we agree that the amount that they're putting in is what we agree that they did put in.
Thank you for that explanation. I think, back to the Bobcat example, if we'd ordered that Bobcat and they came back to us and said, yeah, we actually used more white paint on that than we expected and we're going to charge you more, we'd be pretty frustrated by that. And we'd probably say no. And so that's where I just wanted to be clear on what is our agreement and is this consistent with it? And I'm also interested in, if there's a lot of this measured quantity pay for what we use, are there other areas where we see significant risk of this happening? Is this it? Or, are we going to see, we actually used an extra ton of asphalt and we also used, an extra roll of electrical tape and an extra box of Kleenexes and, what should we expect there?
Sure. Generally speaking, whenever you're dealing with underground things, pipe, etc., that's where you see the most changes, because you don't know the existing ground conditions until you actually open stuff up. So that's where I would expect to see the most changes. But as far as this goes, you could see changes in the crushed rock quantity or the asphalt quantity, but I would hope that MKEC has that whatever errors led to this issue, that those were not extended to other items.
Well, that's my question. Have we gone back through and reviewed everything now that we know that this mistake existed?
I guess I will turn that one over to Greg, because it was his firm that performed the design.
Yeah, Greg, would you mind coming to the podium, please?
Yeah, Greg Allison with MKEC, and yes, on these two quantities, we underestimated the amount. So yes, there was a little bit of a typo in there. I've not gone through the whole list of quantities, but I've got our staff kind of reviewing quantities just to make sure there aren't any other items, but I'm not expecting them, but we are working on that, yes.
So someone is currently reviewing the other item quantities. Okay.
Thank you.
Could you please report back to us the results of that review?
Yeah, I'll get that by your next meeting.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think we've had a considerable amount of discussion on this item. Is there any motion on how to move forward?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the change order request from Pearson Construction in the amount of $39,281.90 for Woodlawn 37th Street North to 45th Street North, and authorize the council president to sign all related documents.
I'll second.
All right. We have a first and a second. Just a final comment on this. I would ask if our city attorney could just review our current contracts and make sure that this approach to measured quantities is consistent with what we've entered into, so that we have real clarity on that if this should come up again. But it does sound like here there was a specific amount of steel that was used. It was measured and confirmed by Garver, and so we are paying for something that was used on this project, and so I'll support this. So, any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion passes 3-0. Item G, consideration of accepting the dedication of streets and other public ways. So at the March meeting, the Planning Commission reviewed the developer's request to plat approximately 53 acres of Chapel Landing Fifth. A public hearing was held to allow interested parties and citizens to share any comments or concerns. Following the hearing, the Planning Commission considered the evidence, discussed the plat, and after diligent consideration, voted 5-0 to approve the final plat without changes. Our city attorney can answer any questions. Do you have any comments that you'd like to make on this?
Chapel Landing 5th. No, not at the, I'm recalling this is the one that had some issues. And
I think if I remember right from our report, this item is the one that there was a proposed zone change, and the zone change was rejected. And then I think the plat ended up not including a zone change, but a PUD. Is that correct? And I'll invite Mr. Kinley back to the podium from Garver.
Kinley with Carver. Yeah, this one here, when we first originally proposed this, we had proposed a zone change because of some lot size considerations and those type of issues. And through the course of the discourse, we ended up eliminating lots, made some changes, and ended up working with the planning commission to where we did not need the zone change and we could proceed with just the final plat. There was concern from the neighborhood. The zoning as it is allows single family and duplexes. The zone change that would have occurred would have hypothetically allowed multifamily zoning. And there was a lot of concern about that, even though that's not the intent from the developer at this time. There was a lot of concern that, it doesn't matter what people intend today. There was concern and some frustration from the neighbors. And so through the course of working it out, we decided that we did not need that. That wasn't the purpose of the zone change anyway. So we withdrew that zone change. So that's why it went off the table.
Thank you. I appreciate that summary. Any discussion on this item?
Mr. President,
Mr. David.
make the motion to accept the dedications within the final plat for Chapel Landing 5th and authorize all required signatures.
I'll second.
I have a first and a second, and I'll confirm with the city attorney that this is a roll call vote.
Yes, sir, with the mayor voting as well.
All right, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mayor Jim Benage,
Aye.
Mr. Greg David,
Aye.
Point of order, please. Did we
Yes.
have a second on this motion?
Yes, Councilmember Welch seconded the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have an aye from Mayor Benage and an aye from Mr. David. Mr. Smith
Aye.
and Mr. Welch.
Aye.
And the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item H is consideration of an agreement with Homestead Senior Residences. For each new development in Bel Aire, the city does a development agreement that's negotiated and approved with the developer. This agreement spells out in writing the responsibilities of each party during construction and after. The agreement is filed with the plat for future reference, and our city attorney can answer any questions about the specifics of this agreement. We do one of these agreements with each new development. We see them on our agenda all the time, so I don't have any questions. Is there any discussion needed on this item? Mr. David.
Make the motion to approve an agreement concerning the development of Homestead Senior Landing, Bel Aire, Sedgwick County, Kansas, and authorize the council president to sign.
I will second. So the motion does have a first and a second. Is there any other discussion? See no discussion. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion passes 3-0. Item I is consideration of approving a planned unit development agreement for the development of LICE. A planned unit development, or PUD, is a zoning tool that ties additional use restrictions to a particular property. For planned unit developments, the city requires a PUD agreement between the city and the developer. This agreement reinforces the particular requirements of each planned unit development. The Planning Commission reviewed the agreement and approved the PUD at their February meeting. And our city attorney also can answer any questions about this.
This will also be a roll call vote with the mayor voting as well, sir.
All right, thank you for that. Did this item pass unanimously at the Planning Commission?
The planned unit development at LICE. I want to say it did. Let me just make sure. Yes, it did. I think that the Planning Commission was really concerned, from memory, about screening and making sure that that approach on rock looked good. And developer expressed that. Developer provided pictures of what the planned unit development will actually look like. And that reassured Planning Commission. So it was unanimous.
I looked at those pictures and they look very nice. So I think it'll be an excellent addition to that area.
So there is on this, and a couple questions. One is I and J are related to the same project. That's correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. There is a section of a lot there that's zone commercial, C1, I think. Is that correct?
On J.
I believe that in this development, I mean, most of it's residential, but there is a C1 lot. And I think it was lot 1, if I remember right, if memory serves me correctly. Do we know the plans for that commercial lot?
I can answer that, Mayor. We do not, because the land bank owns that. So what's south of LaSalle is commercial, and that is owned by the land bank. And I think there's a couple acres that are developable. And on the north is what Mr. Heiser is putting in, and that's the duplexes. And then I believe he's got a little portion up to the very north of that is for commercial. And did he say what he's thinking on that piece?
That is going to be limited to C1 or food type, retail, commercial. So that's included in the PUD. So it will be limited.
Could that have like a quick trip in it, or is it too small for something like that?
Quick Trip doesn't fit in traditional C1, and it's not mentioned in the PUD. So gas station is not one of the places that could fit there. It'd have to be small retail, like food or clothing or something like that, or a restaurant type place. Or otherwise it goes to like traditional office, wholly inside C1.
Okay, very good. And what do you know approximately the size of that? Is it 5 acres or 2 acres, or do you know?
Not off the top of my head. I think you're close with 5 acres, but let me ask Ann, do you recall how much that little triangle C1 piece was on the north end? How many acres? Wrong plat.
The plat or the landscape plan provided on page 82 of your packet does not show the size of that. So without having that in front of me, I cannot tell you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of understand that there was a C1 in there and what it's usable for. So I think my question's answered there. So thank you. Appreciate the information.
The whole development's only about 20 acres, isn't it? So that little triangle can't be more than a couple of acres.
Right. Initially, they were thinking like a small martini bar, just a small place with limited parking. That didn't pan out at all. So now they're looking at other options, but it would be very small. And I can look it up and share it with council as you proceed.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think what I'm understanding is the things that can be put on that are restricted by the PUD, and that's what'll limit it to be something that's compatible with the surrounding properties.
Exactly.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on this item?
Mr. President,
Mr. Welch.
I'll make a motion to approve the planned unit development agreement for the development of Lycée, Bel Aire, Sedgwick County, Kansas, and authorize the council president to sign.
I'll second.
So first and a second, and I'll ask the city clerk to please call the roll and include the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mayor Jim Benage,
Aye.
Mr. Greg David,
Aye.
Mr. Justin Smith,
Aye.
and Mr. John Welch.
Aye.
And the motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Council President, that piece on the north at C1 is about 1.25 acres.
Thank you. All right, item J is consideration of an agreement with Gregory Heiser concerning the development of LaSalle. For every new development, the city requires that development agreement. We've already had one of those on our agenda tonight. This agreement spells out the responsibilities of each party during construction and after. Are there any questions on this item?
Mr. President,
Mr. David.
make a motion to approve an agreement concerning the development of LaSalle, Bel Aire, Sedgwick County, Kansas, and authorize the council president to sign.
Second.
We have a first and we have a second. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes 3-0. Item K, the Bel Aire Public Building Commission is made up of 3 members. One is the mayor, the second is a council member, and the third is a resident appointed by the city council. Dr. Joel Schroeder was formerly the council representative, but has resigned, leaving that position vacant. The mayor sent out a note to the council and asked us to let him know if anyone would be willing to fill that vacancy, and I did volunteer. And so the item on the agenda tonight is his appointment of me to the Bel Aire Public Building Commission.
Mr. President,
Mr. Welch.
I'll make a motion to confirm Mayor Benage's appointment of Councilmember Justin Smith to the Bel Aire Public Building Commission.
I'll second.
There's a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion carries 3-0.
Mr. Council President, I appreciate your stepping up to help with that.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate your appointment. And, you know, the nice thing about the Public Building Commission is that the responsibilities of that commission are a lot less now. We've sold a lot of land and we've made a lot of great progress. And so that used to be a really active commission. And I think it's actually really great that it's not very active now. We still own a little bit of land. And as I understand it, that Public Building Commission will be needed so long as there's still bonds on the land. But it's largely not a lot of responsibility. The commission doesn't typically do that much at this point with the land sales that have occurred here in the city. So that's just a reflection of the progress that we've made with that.
Great. Thank you.
Item L is consideration of confirming Mayor Benage's reappointment of Gary Northwald to the Bel Aire Tree Board. The mayor covered this in his report, and the term is 2 years. Any discussion on this item?
Mr. President,
Mr. David.
make the motion to confirm Mayor Benage's reappointment of Gary Northwald to the Bel Aire Tree Board.
I'll second. There's a motion to confirm the reappointment and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion carries 3-0. Item 14, we are at the executive session agenda item. Is there a need for an executive session tonight? Okay. No need for an executive session. We'll go on to item 15, discussion and future issues. The April 12th workshop. So our typical workshop is the second Tuesday of every month at 6:30. That would fall on April 12th. I think there just needs to be discussion on what are the topics, if any, that we would cover at that workshop.
Yes, I would like to look at slow-moving vehicle issues. I had provided some months ago from the mayor of Clearwater. He provided me with a copy of their ordinances that they had recently passed. I'm not saying we adopt their ordinances, but maybe use that as a framework to discuss and see how we might like to proceed on slow-moving vehicles, including golf carts and motorized cycles and those kinds of things.
I know we've had a lot of things in the past. I can't believe there's nothing. Didn't we also have a topic somebody wanted to discuss RVs or?
Yeah, I
in
think
the
one of
past?
the topics that I've been asked about is parking in driveways and, you know, reviewing the regulations around that with regards to recreational vehicles. That's something that I think that should be on the list. And the other thing that I know I think has been addressed here in citizens' concerns at the podium is sign code. And I think we talked about that somewhat recently, and our city attorney maybe advised us that there was upcoming rulings at the Supreme Court level or something that maybe would impact our thoughts on sign code. And so I don't know if that's occurred yet and we're ready to talk about sign code here in Bel Air or not.
You're talking specifically campaign style signs?
All signs.
So for businesses and
Yeah, I think the issues that's been brought up is, you know, if I put up, you know, a private drive sign, or if I put up a political sign in my yard outside of political season, there's all kinds of signs. Maybe somebody puts a sign on the side of their workshop that, you know, says it's Bob's workshop or something. Those are the things that I think
so these
aren't currently
So
permitted.
you're thinking more personal signage, no matter what category it falls into. But
Yeah, I think that would be a consistent description with what I've heard about.
Yeah, we certainly can talk about signs. Once you open that can of worms, it will be open, and you know you're either going to end up with, you know, moving in a direction where you take a hands-off approach, which is kind of what the Supreme Court is recommending. Lower courts have supported a city's authority and right to have a sign code for different reasons and restrict people's ability to put signs up in non like HOA or private areas. So that's something that
maybe we
you
just
know,
need to be educated instead of talking about creating a new ordinance or something.
I certainly can
Yeah.
go over the current sign code and some of the limitations of that. as
Yeah,
well.
I think you're absolutely right, Councilmember Welch. It may be that no changes are needed, but I suspect it's been a while since that ordinance has been reviewed by council, and I think it would be good to review it and discuss if any changes are appropriate or needed.
So this looks like a pretty big agenda for a workshop. Do we want to select items here and say what we want the city staff to focus on?
Do you guys have any preferences?
It's only 3 items. If you're going to throw one out, I think we ought to throw out the small, slow-moving vehicles, because we've talked about that twice in the last couple of years. And pretty much the answer's been leave it alone.
Yeah, but it's going to keep raising its head. But
Yeah, but we.
okay.
I don't. We're not discussing it now. I'll try to avoid, but I don't think Clearwater is going to be a good model for us to try to follow, because they're different traffic patterns.
Mr. David, do you have any thoughts on the workshop?
I like Mr. Leisher's idea that we take next week off. Sounds like we're beyond that.
Oh, we don't have to do this. It just seems like an opportunity.
Yeah, you know, I think something that we often run into is like the budget season is going to be upon us before long, and the workshops for the foreseeable future will be budget related, and there will be time for very little else. And so things that are not budget related and not street related, this is kind of the window to, I think, talk about them. So if there's something that we need to discuss, this is a great opportunity that I would hate to miss.
One other thing I'd like to consider on this, I don't remember exactly how much input we let citizens have, but I think this would be a good opportunity for anybody who's considering being on the council to show up for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think our current policy for workshops allows the mayor to recognize members of the audience and take questions of them, which provides for some avenue of participation in that as well. Okay, so there's been a suggestion to scratch the slow moving vehicle issue. The other two items that have been thrown out are sign code and current parking regulations, which likely probably look like just kind of review the current state and maybe discuss ideas at this workshop. Probably not formalize any or even get near formalizing any recommended changes, given the probably short turnaround time that we're going to have to prepare that background information. Does that seem fair?
Yes, and Mr. President, if I could, I had a meeting today with some individuals, and we'll schedule a land bank meeting also
Okay.
next Tuesday. So you'll have some discussion there as well.
Yeah, I think given that, we should limit it to 2 agenda items.
Yeah, that'll be plenty if we're doing land bank.
Finally, I know that we were working on a street study. I just want to confirm that the results of that aren't back yet. I think PEC was doing that for us.
Yes, and the city engineer and I met with them to get a preliminary view of how that's going and what it's looking like, and pretty impressive. I think you're going to appreciate it. I thought it was a really neat, interactive. I think our citizens are going to appreciate it, and they will have that ready to present to you at the May workshop.
Awesome.
Yep.
That'll be exciting to see. All right. Well, Mr. Mayor, are you okay with those 2 agenda items?
Yes, I think that's great.
Okay.
Get those addressed and we'll do a land bank. Okay? Very good.
All right. Any other discussion or future issues? All right. Item 16, everyone's favorite item, adjournment.
Mr. President, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. There's a first and a second on a motion to adjourn. Any discussion?
I thought Greg was going to beat me to it.
All right. I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion to adjourn passes 3-0. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.